Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. Thank
Wa
you
alaikum
very
salam.
much for sharing with us your wisdom tonight. I was very taken by your story of the refugee girl because in the work that I do, I also work with a lot of children who have gone through a lot of trauma in their lives. Based on my experience, what I've found is that very often these young girls or boys have not had the opportunity of a formal education. So at the very least, it has been institutional education or care in institutional homes or whatever setting that they've been in. And I'm a little torn because very often the way out of whatever that they're in is often by adults said through marriage. So in short, child marriages. So my question to you, sir, is how do you assist in ensuring that the child is able to continue and receive education post being married off? And very often they are married off to older men who have other wives. And of course, I find the challenge in using religion as an excuse to be able to wed all these young girls with the promise, of course, that they will receive an education, but they never actually do in the end. So thank you for your thoughts.
I said that everything is within a personal context. And I'm living in Scotland, and Scotland is what influences my thinking about issues like this. I'm assuming you're referring to Syrian refugees mainly. And we're also facing the same issues, slightly different to the way things are in Malaysia because the pattern of migration has been different. But our definition of nurturing in Scotland is having, and I accept that this is from a government or from a system, but the Prophet ﷺ says, "Itlubul ilm walau bis-sin." Seek knowledge even if it's in China. Meaning if something, wal-hikmah dalat al-mu'minin. Wisdom is the lost property of the believers. So we say having a nurturing place to live in a family setting with additional help if needed. And that's important, that the ideal situation is in the home, but these homes sometimes need additional help. And the help needs to be focused on what the needs of that child are. So sometimes if a child has got a learning difficulty, it's to support their learning. If it's to do with sometimes a lot of the kids that I work with, most of their parents if the trouble is with their parents. And so sometimes we need to give parents help, sometimes we need to give kids help. But help where needed, or where there is not possible in a suitable care setting. And that last part is the answer that I would give to your question, is that the care setting is really important. Now, I know I'm speaking from a Scottish context, and the Malaysian context is very, very different in that Syrians are not allowed to have the security and safety that they require by law. So the UN says they can have certain rights, and the Malaysian government or system says they can't for their own reasons. Now, what do we do as individuals? I would adopt the approach of this is that we need to find care settings where young girls can thrive. And if that it helps them to thrive without marriage, then that would be my priority. To try and provide opportunities for young girls and young boys to thrive outside of marriage, out where they don't need to marry. And in particular for Syrian refugee girls, I think it's really important that we invest in opportunities for them to thrive. And then, where they do marry, to support them in whatever way it will allow them to thrive in the full way, to be nurtured. And if that requires social support, there's one Syrian lady that I've ended up supporting quite a lot, not because she just needs company. And in the beginning, I would do everything I possibly can to help her and her 2 kids. But in the end, she needed female company. That's what she really needed. So all my work with her was just to try and find people that would be able to visit her, just have tea with her, just allow her to talk, ideally in Arabic, ideally in broken Arabic, so that she can be forced to speak English. And that's what my investment, so to speak, has been. I've tried to introduce Sarah, my wife, to her, and she's met a couple, but it's a bit restricting because of her medical condition. So you need to identify and then personalize your plan. So how many refugees are you working with? How many refugees do you work with? A national. Okay. Okay. So I would work on a very individual basis. What does this person need? And I get an individualized plan of support. Ideally, if they're young girls, out of marriage. Unless that's what they want. If they want marriage, then khalas. But marriage does restrict in the situation we're in at the moment in terms of Syrian refugees in particular. This lady that I was talking about, she has 3 daughters. All of them were married off before they were 14. And I'm trying my best to support one of them in Lebanon to try and maybe get to the UK, out of the marriage and out of the situation. So individualized.